Let's talk about the engine of our modern world. Seriously, how did we get here? The work of three incredible economists, Joel Mokyr, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt, gives us a powerful answer to that question. Their research, which is absolutely Nobel-worthy, explains the very science of prosperity.
Here's a wild thought. For nearly all of human history, life barely changed. Your great-great-great-great-grandparents lived pretty much the same way you did. Economic progress was basically flat. Then, just a couple of hundred years ago, something explosive happened. An era of sustained growth kicked off, and it hasn't stopped. So the big puzzle is, what flipped the switch?
It's not that people weren't clever before the Industrial Revolution. I mean, they invented the printing press, the compass, gunpowder. These were huge, world-changing inventions. But here's the thing. None of them ever led to sustained economic growth. A spark would appear, but it would always fizzle out. But right around the year 1800, that entire pattern just shattered. Something fundamentally shifted. And for the very first time, innovation started to build on itself, creating this incredible upward spiral of progress that we're still riding today. So to figure out what happened, we have to start with history. And that's where Joel Mokyr comes in. He made a powerful argument. Before you could have a revolution in technology, you first needed a revolution in ideas and culture. The groundwork had to be laid.
Mokyr's big idea hinges on two different kinds of knowledge. On one hand, you've got prescriptive knowledge. Think of this as the how-to manual, the craftsman's recipe, the practical technique. On the other hand, you have propositional knowledge. This is the science, the deep understanding of why things work. And for most of history, these two worlds were almost completely separate. The game changer was something called the Industrial Enlightenment in the 18th century. Suddenly, you had this amazing feedback loop. Scientists started talking to artisans. The people who knew why started working with the people who knew how. And when you put those two together, well, that's when you go from a one-off invention to a non-stop innovation machine. And Mokyr showed that this feedback loop didn't just happen in a vacuum. It thrived in a very specific culture of growth that was unique to Europe at the time. You had ideas flying across borders in what they called the Republic of Letters. Europe was so politically fragmented that if one king tried to shut down a new idea, the inventor could just pack up and move to the next country. And critically, you had this huge pool of incredibly skilled artisans, what Mokyr calls upper-tail human capital, who could actually build the new machines the scientists were dreaming up.
Okay, so Mokyr gives us the fertile soil, the historical preconditions for growth. Now enter Philippe Aghion and Peter Howitt. They're the ones who built the economic model of the engine itself. They explained precisely how modern growth actually works.
And the core of their model is a concept called creative destruction. The term was actually coined by another famous economist, Joseph Schumpeter, but Aghion and Howitt gave it mathematical rigor. They showed that progress isn't a gentle process of adding new things. It's a relentless, churning cycle where new, better ideas come along and just demolish the old ones.
The best example? The smartphone in your pocket. I mean, think about it. It wasn't just another new gadget. It was a tidal wave that completely wiped out the markets for digital cameras, MP3 players, GPS units, and a dozen other things. That violent, messy process of the new replacing the old, that is the heartbeat of economic growth.
And this was a huge leap forward for economics. See, back in the 50s, Robert Solow proved that technology was the key to growth, but he couldn't explain where it came from. It was just this mysterious black box. Then, Paul Romer started to open the box by modeling how we invent new types of things. But Aghion and Howitt added the final crucial piece of the puzzle. Innovation is often about making better quality things that make the old ones obsolete. It's about destruction.
And this leads us to the central tension of it all. If creative destruction is the engine of our prosperity, well, it's also an engine of chaos. It's a real double-edged sword. It creates winners and losers, and that means policymakers have to walk a very, very fine line.
Let's start with the good news. The benefits are just undeniable. This constant churn is what delivers higher productivity, amazing new products and services, and ultimately the incredible rise in living standards that has pulled literally billions of people out of poverty. It's the whole reason our world looks the way it does.
But the costs are just as real, and they can be brutal. Entire industries can vanish in a decade. Skills that took a lifetime to learn can become worthless overnight. Whole communities can be hollowed out,
and the gap between the innovators and those left behind can grow into a chasm. The key insight here is that you can't get the good stuff without figuring out how to manage the bad.
So how do you manage it? Well, one of the most famous findings from their work is this inverted U curve. It's brilliant. It shows that you don't get the most innovation when you have a monopoly. Those firms just get lazy and complacent. But you also don't get it with perfect cutthroat competition because then profits are so low nobody can afford to do research. The sweet spot, the place where innovation thrives, is in the middle, a healthy level of rivalry, where firms are in a constant race to get ahead of each other.
This insight gives us a practical policy toolkit. First, you need strong competition policy to stop big monopolies from squashing new rivals. Second, you have to invest in the raw ingredients of innovation, basic scientific research, and a great education system. And third, and this part is absolutely critical, you have to protect the workers who are caught in the transition with things like unemployment benefits and retraining, rather than trying to protect the obsolete jobs themselves.
So, let's bring this all home. We can use these powerful ideas to make sense of the huge disruptive forces that are shaping our world right now in the 21st century.
Their work is like a lens for understanding today's biggest challenges. The absolute explosion in artificial intelligence, that's a textbook case of that neck-and-neck competition driving innovation at a furious pace. The power of big tech? Well, that highlights the danger of today's winners becoming tomorrow's monopolists, who then block the next wave of innovation. And what about climate change? Their work tells us we can actively steer creative destruction, using smart policy to supercharge green technologies and drive polluting industries out of existence.
So in the end, the work of these laureates leaves us with a really profound question. Our entire modern world was built on a unique culture that embraced scientific progress and was willing to live with the chaos of creative destruction. But as we stare down the barrel of massive disruptions from AI and the urgent need for a green transition, the real challenge is, can we still do it? Do we still have the wisdom and the will to manage this process for a new century of prosperity?